Oh, hey there, folks. Didn't see you there. Look, I got my moose cup today. We're going to be talking. I Moose Wake Up. Today, we got somebody we're going to be talking about fungi, I believe. Alisha Millican. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I've had better. What a crazy world. I'll say that. Um,
Oh, that's true. That's true. Hanging in there. It's beautiful weather today. I can't complain.
well, and if he complained, nobody would listen anyway,
That's
Uh,
true.
so, what? Tell me a story. How'd you get started in your childhood? Did you get turned on to mushrooms and mycology, biology, and stuff? Well, what did it?
So, okay. So I I did grow up. So I do come from a German lineage, and we were taught there were some fungi that we were taught to eat as young kids. That we were kind of inherited that a little bit of foraging culture. And as a kid, I was really obsessed with like surviving in the woods. And so my interest in mushrooms up until very recently was I can eat these couple of species if I needed to. Um, but my real entry into mycology was a complete accident. It was totally serendipitous. I was a master gardener. So, and it was a focus on wild edibles. And so I do have a lot of like plant knowledge and a background in plants, but my husband's job moved us from Georgia to Alabama, and I had a 3-month-old newborn, and I didn't know anybody. I had no community over there, and so I was like just desperate to go out and do anything. I needed something to do. I was bored, and I saw that the Alabama Mushroom Society was holding a meeting at a local biology science themed bar in Birmingham, and I thought, that's interesting. I'm going to go check out this Alabama Mushroom Society meeting. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was a total fluke. And I mean, within
Wow.
6 months, I was doing their newsletter. Another 6 months, I was their VP. Next, I was their president. Um, Next thing I know, I'm being contacted to serve on the board of the North American Mycological Association. I'm getting roped up in the fungal diversity survey. And it was just a very, very slippery slope. It was never a conscious decision. At one point, I told my husband, I said, if I'm still interested in this in 1 year, I'm going to get a microscope so that I can do microscopy on my mushrooms. A
Yeah.
year, I had a full lab in my house. Like, it was so blown out of
Wow.
the water. It was crazy. Yeah.
But surely
Yeah.
you've had some earlier experiences where you got turned on to biology. You were literally just bored, and you said,
So yeah, well, I was a veterinary technician, so like all my lab
"Okay,
experience comes from being a vet tech. So I was doing ear smears and like things on a microscope there, but and like I have a history in plants. I'm very science minded. Um, I'm mostly self educated. I just can dive into the very academic literature and really wrap my head around it. And um, languages come easy to me. So like the Latin binomials were no problem. And no, I just it really was. I just got sucked in. I
and then they
accidentally dedicated my life to this.
and it's so understudied that fungi is so understudied that they just made you queen of the fungi right away. They're like, you're in charge of all
In
this."
Alabama, they're like a willing volunteer here. Have this, yeah, um, yeah.
Somebody
I mean,
under
it
somebody
really
under 50 too.
there's so much that needs done that regardless of your experience level, there is some way for you to get involved and make meaningful contributions. And then how far you take that is entirely up to you. But there's so much that needs done that you can participate. You can do it if you're interested.
So what you were working with the University of West Alabama, is that right?
Hmm. Yep, I'm the
What were
assistant
the
curator of Fungi there.
some of the challenges when you were maintaining the voucher specimens for rare fungi? And tell me a story about that and what that was like, the experience of being there.
Okay, well let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So when I started, I started working with the herbarium. They didn't have hardly any mushroom collections, very few. Um, I don't know. I don't know, very few. So I was brought in. I was already collecting and sequencing and vouchering specimens and sending them to herbaria. And so neither of the director or the curator there have a really great knowledge of like field ID and like identifying mushrooms. They're both plant people. The one guy's a really knowledgeable in lichens but doesn't know macrofungi. And they were like, she's interested, she's intelligent, she can do this. And they just kind of let me handle the fungi collections, because there was nobody doing it. There was nobody knowledgeable about it, and it needed done. And I was a willing victim.
Wow. It's so funny
So,
that we always think that the barrier to entry is some kind of master's or PhD degree in order to participate in science, but I don't like that.
and a lot of science, that's the case. And up until recently, I think there is still a very like ivory tower mentality in certain academic circles, but it's dying. There's only one university in the United States that you can receive an undergrad degree in mycology. Should I want to go and get a degree in an undergrad degree in mycology right now, there's one university, University of Wisconsin Madison, that I can go, and that's it. And everyone else has a degree in plants or general biology or herbology or whatever. It's not fungal specific. So my argument is, why spend the time and money to go get a degree that isn't even directly applicable to what I'm already doing?
Right. Yeah, and they don't do it. The same is true about nutrition science. They don't. Doctors are only supposed to take, a semester of nutrition when that's sort of what they see all day is diseases that are related to what you've been eating.
Right.
Um, Quite fascinating science and stuff. But at the same time, you dive into the literature, you don't have any problem with uh, with the way papers are formed or the things they say. You don't. I do the nutrition. I look for conflicts of interest, but if you're studying mycology, there's not really a lot of corruption out there in these papers.
If you own a company that primarily sells products that cure cancer and other maladies, and then are doing your own research and then citing yourself um, as the authority on the subject, then I would say that's a conflict of interest.
Did you see that yet? Really?
Yep, you see that.
Yeah. One of my least favorite parts about humans is their ability to sell themselves, sell everyone out from under them. Yeah. Okay.
On that note, there's very little scientific research to support that mushrooms are going to cure you of anything. Um, so, like all
Really.
those supplements, the coffee supplements, all the things in the grocery stores, they're not doing much of anything. The
Mm,
biggest like exciting possibilities are like the psychedelic mushrooms for treating PTSD and anxiety and things like that. That has amazing potential.
yeah.
There's a little bit of potential with like lion's mane, um, and then there's some fungi that have like there's one that has been shown to have a completely novel antibiotic. It's like it doesn't fit in any of our current categories of antibiotic. As far as I know, it's not being developed. As far as I know, there's no
Mm.
research being done into it, and but it's something that it has to be made into a pharmaceutical because there's other things in the fungi, and you have to like be able to quantify the amounts of the actual antibiotic. And people think that you can just eat mushrooms and it's going to cure your cancer, and
Yeah.
it's
And
not
I,
based in science.
well, this is from an ignorance or a lack of studying the chemical compounds of all the mushrooms because we haven't even found them all. So how do we know that we haven't found? And I've heard this before. It's like antibiotics come from like one source, and it's primarily terrestrial. It comes from the land, and we're not even. There's no money in creating newer, better, more effective antibiotics because capitalism. I don't know. Yeah, not
Yep.
my favorite thing in the world. So you got to hang out at the university. They say, "Well, come on in because we need all the help we can get." Um, what other? You're also leading the Southeast Rare Fungi Challenge. What is this?
So Fungal Diversity Survey is a nonprofit that is focusing on conservation efforts, and like basically it's about finding what mushrooms are out there and where they occur and being able to like move forward with conservation efforts for them. And so it's very regional. There's a Northeast challenge, there's a West Coast challenge, so on and so forth. And they wanted us to do a Southeast challenge. And if you want something done, you do it yourself. And so I'm running the Southeast Rare Fungi Challenge. We have 20 species that we worked with some other mycologists and determined that they had the possibility of being endangered or rare. And we've just been collecting data and trying to collect specimens and trying to determine if they are just underdocumented or if they are truly rare and could be benefit from conservation.
So, what's your starter kit? What do you order from the internet to get yourself set up with a laboratory where you can fiddle around with these things and try to figure out what they're made of and stuff? I don't really
Um,
know, so you got to
yeah.
educate me.
So, I mean, it's I would say like there's definitely like way easier entry levels, like for getting interested in helping with mushroom science. And then I would say a microscope is kind of like your intermediary, like get yourself a microscope, learn to use it, learn to be able to look at the spores and other structures. And then, you know, if you're like me, you can get yourself a thermocycler and start be doing PCR in your basement to send off for DNA sequencing.
Thermocycler.
Thermocycler, yeah.
What is that?
So you put a little bit of the mushroom's DNA in a tube, and with certain primers that isolate certain gene regions that you need, and then the thermocycler runs it at specific temperatures for specific lengths of time, and it multiplies and duplicates the DNA a whole bunch of times within that gene region that you're looking for. And then you
Okay.
send it to a big lab, and the big lab runs it through this machine that costs more than anything any of us could afford. And it reads that DNA that was replicated so many times and kind of takes a consensus of it. And then it spits it back out, and we're able to analyze those numbers and see if we can match it to a reference sequence.
How long does the big machine take?
Oh, I have no idea. Well, so I'm kind of talking about Sanger sequencing, because now there's the next generation nanopore sequencing. And I mean, that can be done in 24, 48 hours, usually, I think. I don't usually do that part. So, but it's the ability to take a little machine outside with you and plug it into a mushroom and have it pop up and be like, Tylopolis,
Okay.
whatever, is not far off. Like we may see that in our
Okay.
lifetime.
Good to know. And that'll revolutionize more than just mycology, I guess. And so, okay, how much of a sample do you need?
For sequencing,
Yeah.
less than the size of a grain of rice.
I always pepper people with stupid questions because I'm an idiot.
There's no such thing as stupid questions. I love leading forays with small kids because they will ask the questions that all the adults are too afraid will sound stupid if they ask. But no, like for our new, too much material is actually a problem in sequencing. The big labs have just started doing where you take a toothpick and you stab it into the mushroom and then you dip that into the primers. So whatever sticks to the toothpick is literally what is going into the primers. So, I mean, it is a minuscule amount of material that is needed for a sequence.
Would you ever consider, or do you know what the environment out there is like for grant writing in order to conduct further research on something like this? Or do you absolutely have to have, this is going to be a product that's going to revolutionize the way we wear socks?
Grants are few and far between, and you pretty much have to be associated with a university to get them. I used to run the Alabama. I'm now in East Tennessee, and so I'm running the East Tennessee Mushroom Club, which I've started last year. But I ran the Alabama Mushroom Society for 4 years as their president, and I wanted to run large scale DNA sequencing on all of our fungi in Alabama. And so I was like, how am I going to fund this? We did have we have some income from memberships, but I put on an Alabama Mushroom Festival and build it up from scratch, and we've done that the last 4 years, and that funds all of our sequencing.
Yeah,
a lot of these big labs, most of us are pouring a lot of it. Mycologists, don't get into mycology if you want to make money, because there's not that many people that will pay you to do mycology. Most of us are doing it because we love it, and we're not like we're dumping our own money into it. Nothing I do is funded.
But what you're doing, yeah, that's totally clear by the news. It's like if mushrooms were really exciting, they would be talking about it. People hate mushrooms or don't care. It's amazing what they do. They're amazing little critters.
There's some really interesting reason why in North America specifically, fungi, people are so mycophobic.
Give it to me.
So, America is largely immigrants. And so Eastern Europeans, they have a really strong culture of eating mushrooms and foraging. And so many of these immigrants came over to North America and started foraging for mushrooms that looked like species they had back home. And they got sick. They weren't the same. Mushrooms are very, very continental. There's more mushrooms, like most mushrooms will only occur on like an isolated continent. They don't span. There's some. It's not
more so with the interconnected world. Sure.
But So they got sick, and then it became, you can't eat mushrooms here. Don't, there was no long stay. I mean, think about it. It was my great grandparents who immigrated. So it's not been that many generations for there to be time for people to, and the need to forage and learn the fungi here and what's edible and what's not.
Yeah.
Native Americans did not have, most Native American culture did not have strong mushroom eating culture.
Really?
They did not eat a lot of mushrooms. Very few species were consumed. There's a couple of places like native communities in Mexico that do, but in North America. And
Yeah.
so it became, don't eat the mushrooms here. They're dangerous. They're bad. And we've passed that down to our kids and passed it down to our kids and passed that down to our kids.
Yeah. I find that totally fascinating. Same to go with a lot of the apprehension we have about rodents. I mean, they do carry disease, but not to the degree. Like, we're very still scared from the Black Plague. And I looked up, I rescued a baby stoat recently, a little weasel, and he was in the road, and he was adorable, and I had to save him. We got him to the wildlife rehabilitator, but yeah. Anyway, sometimes I just start thinking about stoats. I lost my place. But so you're doing all this, raising awareness. You have this festival. Is That's one of the most creative ways I think that we could actually get fungi to the people, is if we have to introduce them as a food source and explain to them. I guess we were talking about the culturally the mushrooms. It's interesting that the Native Americans didn't, but the Europeans just loved it, because Otzi the caveman even had polypores in his pockets because they were incredibly useful. So what else have you learned? I guess I'm just thumbing around for a question. What of all the cultures and all the fungi cultures out there, what do you think is the most interesting thing that stands out? Obviously, Asia has a lot going on. What do you think?
Yeah. It's not my area of expertise.
Damn.
So I know so much of the cultural use of fungi, especially in Asian cultures, is very folklore based. I mean, they eat a lot of species, but a lot of the medicinal attributes that they contribute to them in traditional Chinese medicine are not in line with the science.
Yeah.
It's not my primary interest.
Like the
I can't.
carotene, right? They say we can eat the rhino horn. I'm like, this is the same stuff that's in fingernails. You don't
Right.
need that.
Right. Yeah.
I chew my
Yeah.
fingernails all the time. Gives me no kind of, I don't know, what do they get?
Yep.
Vitality. No, I'm
Yep.
good.
Yep. There's all
But
kinds of weird body parts that they consume and probably shouldn't.
but you are against the more evangelical claims, medical claims for mushrooms, except for the psilocybin.
I'm a big fan of the ones that have science to back them up, and psilocybin does. Psilocybin
Yeah.
does. The potential for it in treating treatment resistant depression and anxiety and post traumatic stress disorder has tremendous potential. Lion's mane has some interesting potential as far as cognition and things like that, but most of them they just don't hold weight, and the science isn't there to back it up.
What is the mechanisms underneath? Do we know?
For which ones?
For the psychedelic, because I've taken psychedelics and they changed my life, made me more empathetic and curious. I'm just wondering, and helped my trauma for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What did they say about the mechanisms underneath, that why
Yeah,
it's
it's
helping?
really well studied. I don't have the knowledge. That's again not my area. I feel like psychedelics are really, there's the people that are really interested in psychedelics, that's their thing.
Yeah,
And it's probably better studied than everything else combined. So
that's
there are
good.
people that can answer those things for you, but I can't.
I'll find that guy or gal and have them, on the
Absolutely.
show.
I can make you some recommendations.
Would you please? I was just going through the North American mycological speaker. I just give me
I
everybody.
was wondering where you saw me.
Just give me everybody, and then I got some really beautiful people that have just made push me further and further into the woods. So I'm looking for stuff all the time,
That's fantastic.
because I'm bored and I'm angry, and the world is terrible, and I think this is the greatest hobby that you could really
The woods is
shoot
a good
for,
place to be.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and German woods especially are good. There are similarities, though, right, with some mushrooms. I know that you've probably seen some mushrooms, especially edible ones. They make their ways over. Truffles make their way. Can you name a few that are actually found globally?
Schizophyllum commune is the first one that comes to mind. I know that is
What was that
really,
again?
really widespread. Schizophyllum commune.
Gesundheit. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
it's the split gill mushroom. It's cosmopolitan. Um, I think Trametes versicolor is pretty cosmopolitan. Uh, there's 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 a whole lot that
Oh.
see. So, in addition to fungi being well studied in Europe and academically having a much longer standing history there were a lot of European names of fungi that were applied to our North American species that we're only recently discovering is erroneous. Um,
Hmm.
like the golden chanterelle, Cantharellus uh, Siberius, Siberius. It's primarily we have found a sprinkling, a couple of them that have probably been brought in on the tree roots from trees being shipped from Europe here, but
Um,
most of our species that's not what we have. But that name was widely applied. It's in all the old field guides, like from the 80s. Um, and there's lots of examples of
you,
this. Styrium austraea, it's in all the old field guides. It's a species described from Java. It doesn't occur in North America at all, but nobody really looked into it. That we just take these names of these mushrooms that have already been established and just slap them on our species here that look similar.
uh, interesting. So you're saying there's low hanging fruit like crazy, and there's so much work to be done.
About 40 45% of everything I sequence is doesn't match any reference data. It's undescribed.
How do you cross reference that? Is there a database?
Um, there's a couple of databases, yeah, of and I mean it's a lot of what we're doing right now. It's getting a hold of these type specimens that are in older Baria and sequencing the ones that are the type that are representative of that species, and then seeing if our data of our collections match that type or not.
How often do you touch base with other mycologists around the world?
Daily, I'm friends with a
Daily.
lot of them.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I'm
We have
trying to also
running group
gather.
chats. I mean, we're
Really,
always, yeah.
I want in. I want in. Um, yeah, I think there should be a federation of mushroom freaks, and it should be, very official, and so that we're all in the same boat. I've had so many. I had Xu Jinping. He's do you know him? Xu Jinping. He's University of Toronto University, some place in Canada, but he does the genetics testing on them, and he studies the mitochondria specifically.
Hmm.
So, and he told me that they're very intelligent, these mitochondria, because they don't pass on, well, not intelligent in that way, but they don't pass on um, harmful traits like humans or mammals would,
Oh,
where like
interesting.
asthma or different diseases like mushrooms or fungi, they're incapable of passing on stuff that would be detrimental to their evolutionary little made environment, the thing that that's what he said.
That's
Uh,
interesting.
cool guy. I'm just spitballing here. So we're seeing climate change, obviously, and I've had zoologists and I've had all these people. They all are a bit worried, and they're pulling their hair out a little bit on their human activity. What have you ever seen anything firsthand where you think, where have all the flowers gone? Where?
No, and I'll tell you, okay, for starters, I went to that first mushroom meeting in March of 2020. So prior to 2020, I wasn't interested or learning about mushrooms at all. So I only have 5 years invested. But we just don't have that long-standing data to compare to. We don't know what's here. We don't know what's disappearing faster than we can describe it. But 95% of land plants are mycorrhizal with fungi. And so every time we lose a species of plant that goes extinct because of development, because of habitat loss, we're losing all of those fungi that partner with those plants.
Hmm.
And we don't even know what most of them are. So I don't have numbers. I can't sit here and tell you how many fungi we're losing because we don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
So the and then and there has probably been plenty of species gone extinct, and we would also never know. There are theories posed, I've heard, about what kind of fungi were around in different eras or different points of time, the prehistoric ages and stuff. Do you get into anything like that? Do you ever read any interesting theories about the fungi that could have existed?
Not really. I'm familiar with the what are they called? The pyrotaxis or something along those lines. They're like ancient fossilized fungi that were giant. I got to see those
Yeah.
in New York. And as far like genetically, we can run trees and see what like the oldest lineages of a certain taxa is. But as far as like, so much of it is really just estimation. I mean, so much of it we can't know.
Yeah.
Prototaxis.
It's fast.
Prototaxis.
Yeah, I'm looking it up too. I didn't spell it right, I think. But yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of. Something giant mushrooms that not only were there at the very beginning, but something similar to that could end up inheriting the earth after we.
Oh, certainly. So fungi, we're discovering more and more. So morels are really pretty well studied. They fungi they produce asexually and they also produce sexually, and then sometimes they're adaptive. I mean, they can, some of them need certain bacteria in the soil to reproduce, and they can go from being saprobic to mycorrhizal. And I mean, fungi will outlive us all, certainly, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, I think once the things really do get bad, it'll be something like this. The sun gets too hot, and then we want to block out the sun, and then everything's all overcast, and it's like it's like Venus or what? No, it's yeah, Venus. Venus is the one with the atmosphere that just traps in all the heat, and then we're gonna eat each other and whatever weird new fungi that kind of is created from that. And I guess
We're
that
already we're already seeing fungi that are feeding on the radiation of like Chernobyl. They've
right,
adapted to actually feed on the radiation. And I mean, that's Chernobyl was what, in the 80s? So I mean, look
yeah.
at that kind of rapid evolution that we're seeing. Fungi will be fine.
Isn't
The
that
ones that we don't
another?
wipe out.
Yeah. Is that another a creative way to get funding too? Is also saying we'll use fungi for remediation. At least that you're
Yeah,
not a total
you
d
can,
bag.
yeah, you can get funding if you can link it to clean up, or like you pretty much have, you can't be like, I'm studying mushrooms because mushrooms need studied. You have to link it to something that there is funding for.
Yeah.
So, I don't know,
Yeah. It's a
environmental
dirty.
protections and
There guy this week he said, why not tell them that you want to study the lichens on the tree because they absorb so much pollutants, especially the ones near roads, that you could study that and monitor that and give reports on how polluted the air is in that region. So that's a good idea. But again, without a degree, nobody's going to give me money. I'm crazy
yep,
passionate. They're like, yeah, we don't care. You have to pay 80 grand to get the piece of paper and then we'll talk.
yep, yep.
Okay. So I've exhausted myself because I'm a beginner. So why don't you tell me something exciting about mushrooms that you're working on now?
I can tell you about some interesting sequencing results we've had come out of Alabama.
Would you please?
I would. So I had a red rustler. They're brittle gills is what they're called, and they're super common. There's 80 plus species of these red russula. In the old field guides, they're all Russula emetica. The vomiter, they're not all that, but that's the one that made it into the field guides. So, and they look similar enough that if you punch it in, everyone will be like, I have Russula emetica in my yard. Probably not. But I had one come back
Oh
that
yeah.
we only have 3 sequences that match this mushroom. There's one in Ohio, one in Georgia, and then the one in Alabama. That's it. No
Wow.
idea
This is
what it is, but it's apparently not very
and
common.
what are we talking about as far as chemical composition or toxicity?
All red russula in North America are edible when cooked.
Okay. So, how are they?
Not worth the
Taste
effort,
okay?
in my opinion. Yeah, no, they're just skip them unless you're real hungry. They don't hold up well. They don't have very good texture. They just kind of fall apart and crumble. And yeah, I don't bother with them. I hear that the green russula are much tastier and that they're worth messing with. But I only ever find them in like one or two at a time. And I'm like, I'll get one mouthful of mushrooms for all this work cleaning them. So I haven't bothered with them, but I hear that the green ones are pretty tasty. The red ones, nobody's eaten red russula in large quantities, and it's not because they're not common.
Do some of these mushroom guys, they kind of like lie a little bit to try to, oh no, it was really good, and do they try to like get you to eat stuff where you're like, I don't know?
I don't think so. I think most of us, what's more common within the expert community, this isn't like the general population. So recently, the toxic chemical in chlorophyllum mollibidities was like, it's called the vomiter. It's a super common yard mushroom. It's in all the guides as like this toxic, dangerous mushroom. And people do eat it and puke violently. But the toxin was recently isolated and identified. And we discovered that's heat liable. So if you cook it well, it renders it inert. And so a bunch of us have been volunteering as guinea pigs, and we're like spreading this information amongst the expert community. They're like, go try some chlorophyllum mollibidities and tell us how it is. And so a bunch of us, so that's more common than like trying to trick people into eating benign mushrooms. So that aren't that great. We're like,
well, how'd you cook it then? What to be sure? Do you boil it, fry it, cook it, and then drain the water, or how's that work?
You just cook it on high heat and on the stove. I think we have it like narrowed down to like a time frame, like how long it really needs to stay under high heat on the stove. You just cook the bejeebies out of it, really, to be sure. But it's actually really tasty. It's actually a really good mushroom. And what's funny is morels. So this mushroom, if you eat it and you don't cook it well enough, you'll puke. You'll be real sick. Like if you have comorbidities, it could kill you. But morels are deadly toxic 100% of the time if you eat them raw. If you don't cook a morel well enough, you will die from it. They're very dangerous. Yeah.
What's the toxin in that?
I don't have my notes in front of me, man.
Stumped you.
It starts with an M, and it's a precursor that they use for rocket fuel. I know that the chemical is a precursor in rocket fuel.
It's a high protein animal feed. It's a additive to dynamite. It is low cost insulation for low income housing. It's everything. Yeah.
It's not good to eat, but yeah. So I mean, people rave about morels and how delicious and great they are, but they're super dangerous uncooked too.
Yeah.
But nobody will touch the vomiter because we've all been taught that it's toxic and not to eat it. But it's actually a really good edible.
And isn't there,
in our limited anecdotal experience?
Sure. I trust you about as far as I can throw you.
Can I make a disclaimer not to do anything that I've recommended? I'm not recommending you try it, but
it should be said everything on this program done at your own risk.
Right. Yeah. None of my opinions reflect the opinions of any of the organizations I work with, that sort of thing.
I don't know this person. She could be crazy. I don't know. So as other stuff, there are morels that are also lookalikes. I mean, is this a big deal within the community when you go out and say, oh, I got the lookalike and then killed my husband?
No, there's only one lookalike that's toxic with, well, one, it's a group. It's the gyroporous. No, not gyroporous. Yeah. We don't have them in Alabama. There's no lookalike in Alabama. All the like half free morels, the verpas, they're equally as edible as morels. Gyrometra. It's one specific group of mushrooms within gyrometra that are the toxic ones. The rest of them are edible. Or
gyrometra.
Many of them. Gyrometra, yeah. The beefsteak mushroom is one of the common names for it, but not the polypore, the brain-looking one. But it doesn't occur in Alabama, so it's really a moot point. And I mean, they're not common. Sometimes people confuse stinkhorns for morels.
Really?
Which, yeah. But they're non-toxic. Yeah. So
interesting.
There's
But
less than 1% of fungi are toxic or dangerously
are
toxic.
deadly toxic, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
heard some percentages, like only about 30% or something make you, or 70% make you sick, or how much, which percentage is totally edible
yeah,
with
so
no
you have
issue?
to with no cooking, like we have to
No,
like
no, no,
because there's
just
lots of mushrooms
cooked or non-cooked. Yeah, but just
but
edible.
there's also like if it's not cooked well enough, like there's also and a lot of people will like I don't know, people will be like, "Can I eat this?" And it'll be like this old buggy mushroom and I was like, "Dude, like even if it's edible, the
Look at
bacteria
it.
load on that mushroom is going to make you sick." Like if that was in the grocery store, would you pay for that? Like so I mean, there's just so many levels to saying like a mushroom is edible. Like
Well,
it
you
there's
know what I always say? Everything is edible if you're brave enough.
edible means fit to be eaten, not
Oh,
can
fit
be
to
eaten.
be, could be.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2x4s, you could eat it a bite at a time if you were determined enough. Not edible. Like
Okay.
people will be like, "Oh, is this Ganoderma edible?" No, man. Like you can't chew that.
I don't
Don't.
know if I'd eat this one. I wouldn't eat this one either. It's pretty. So what do
Right.
we got here? Is this in the turkey tail family? Why is it so big? And I
Yeah.
just got it
So
off a frozen log. It was ice cold, and I peeled it off, and
so
it's
if I found this here in North America, I would call it Trimides asculi. I
okay.
am my mushroom knowledge is extremely limited to the southeast U.S.
Well,
Even
that's
getting like out on
pragmatic.
the west coast is very different. And so European fungi, I don't even know what occurs in Europe. Don't ask me. But if that was here, I would call it Trimides asculi.
Well, I'll tell you, you come by my house anytime. We'll like to have you guys out. You bring the whole family. We'll do a whole mushroom hunt. So,
Heck
all
yeah.
right. Any idea? I mean, surely there's some similarities between your polypores and ours.
I ignore our polypores here too. You know, polypores are
What?
tough. Ganoderma maybe. I think it's not a Ganoderma actually, the way that it's stacking. But yeah, no, I my specialty are the ascomycetes that are like teeny tiny, the stuff that you have to like flip over a log and like use a
Ah,
magnifying glass. I specialize in like really tiny stuff. I largely ignore the bracket fungi that grow on trees.
shame on
So
you, racist,
I know,
racist.
I know.
Um, what about the? So, do you need like a special camera too? To do you take pictures of the teeny tiny little guys?
My phone does a darn good job, but I
Really?
actually have an assistant now that follows me around in the woods with his macro lens set up on his phone or on his
Cool.
camera. And like, so if I find something that's really special, he'll take really great photos for me. But, and there's a couple of like clip-on lenses for your cell phone that actually do a pretty decent
Oh
job.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
As long as you got a decent phone, the cameras on phones these days are insane.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
And there's
What
a little bit
about?
of technique to learn, but you can
Sure.
do it.
What about the UV light? Do you have one of these numbers?
I have like 6 of those. Yeah.
So we got the cheap one, and I was like, that's just a blue LED light, and my wife's like,
Yeah, no, you need
I
to
don't
find
know.
so here's the trick. You need to find one that is a 365 nanometer UV because they come in all different nanometer wavelengths. You want the 365. They also come in 395, and you don't want that for funky. You want the 365. I can make some Alone Fire makes a really good like medium middle of the range, and then UV Beast is a really big one that has a really long range, but it's like $80.
Okay.
But I got one of all of them. They're great. It's a ton of fun. Even if the fungi aren't popping, there's so many like millipedes and things, crayfish, things that glow under UV out in the woods that are just phenomenal to go out and find.
Well, that hurts the human's eyes, right? You can't look directly into it for an extended period of time. What about the millipedes? Do they go blind if you shine it on them enough?
You know,
I
I've
hope
never
not.
followed one around and tortured him to tell you. I can't, I know spiders, I think it's the temperature. I think they can detect the temperature change, but if you shine it on a
Yeah.
spider, they'll drop from their web. They like try and get away from it.
Really?
Hmm.
That's fascinating. Oh, you know what's also fascinating? Worms, earthworms, they come out at night, at least in Germany, and they just hang out on the surface. And if you go by there with a light and shine the light on the worms, they scurry back into a little hole. And I was like, how do they know that I'm shining a light if they don't have any eyes and they're freaking worms? Like, what's going on here? And it turns out they have sensory organs in their skin that sense light, and they go,
Yeah.
"Ooh, it's it's a light," and then
It's
they go,
bright out here. Yeah.
"Crazy!" And I love that.
Oh, I think I lost your audio.
Check, check.
Oh, okay. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the nature. How often do you get out to the woods?
Not often enough. Never often enough. I lead a monthly foray, like February through October. So I'm at least out once a month leading people in the woods. And then in addition to that, I get paid to go out and do like for festivals and forays and things like that. And so I do about one of those a month. But I'm outside as much as I can be. I'm constantly, I have my entire front yard covered in wood chips. I'm like trying to kill all the grass. And so every day I'm like out there crawling around trying to find like what new mushrooms have popped up. I have everything documented and vouchered and sequenced for my wood chip yard.
Are you
Like,
you're the crazy lady in the neighborhood?
oh yeah. Like I'm sure my immediate neighbors know me and like I don't know if that helps, but I'm sure like the people that just drive by are like, oh my gosh, that woman's out there laying in the wood chips again. I take my kids to playgrounds that are like wood adjacent so that I found some really interesting fungi growing on the wood chips at one of the playgrounds, and I'm like laying there. They're 4 and 5, so they're not old enough to be embarrassed by me yet, but it's coming. Like I'm down there like taking pictures of these teeny tiny mushrooms growing on the wood chips at the playground.
Yeah.
And like
Couple more years, it's Mom. God,
yeah.
what are you doing?
I'm expecting that for my son. My daughter still, she says, Mom, I want to be a mushroom scientist like you when I grow up.
Dude, I think if you have that passion, like you'll be able to, and the fact that you have children is wonderful because that's gonna come through. And so many kids out there don't have a parent that have passion. Oh,
Well,
they're gonna turn out great.
my forays that I lead, I'm very, very like, bring your kids, like, let your kids ask questions. I will pass around all mushrooms are safe to touch. Like, let me teach your kids about mushrooms because we're breaking that generational misinformation. We're breaking that mycophobia that people pass down. I have my kids have been, there's mushrooms that they've been identifying by the Latin binomial since they were 2. Like, they're running around. They're going to be like the weirdo kids in preschool correcting their teachers when they're like, put the mushroom down. And they're like, actually.
Yeah. And then when they get to university, they'll just shoot right to the top because they've been science minded their entire lives.
Or they will hate science and go into the arts because they never want to look at another microscope again. It'll be one or the other.
Yeah, my kid, I'm so nature and left wing politics and all this stuff, and my son has just decided that he wants to be religious. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ.
Like, right in the heart. Oh,
Okay, pray for me then, because I need all the help I can get. So one more question. Look, I did this selfishly because I love to do this. There's no money involved. I invite people who I think are cool, and I try to rub elbows with them. But this is a podcast. What would you say to the average Joe or Joan out there who wants to get into it, wants to become more active? What do you have to say to the general population about this wonderful field of intrigue?
Start where you are. Start taking pictures of the mushrooms that you find. We need to see a picture of the top and a picture of the bottom. You can dig it up. All mushrooms are safe to touch. And start posting to like iNaturalist.org, which is a nonprofit that people like me come along and identify your mushrooms. We're real experts IDing things, and it's contributing to larger citizen science data. We're learning what occurs where and when by people like you who are just interested and want to know what the red mushroom growing in your front yard is. And then Facebook is still a really great, there's lots of Facebook groups. Many of them are regional. The mushroom identification page is a worldwide page. You can post from anywhere, but there's also really great regional pages that focus more specifically on mushrooms that grow in a more narrow area. So you might have a state page. And then if you go to NAMA, you can check out and see if there's a North American Mycological Association affiliated club in your area, and you can get involved. The best thing to do to learn is to go out with experts and get that hands-on experience. I can explain to you the texture of a russula or the odor of an anosebe all day long. You can read it in a book, but until you're out in the woods and I can hand it to you and be like, smell this. This is what an anosebe smells like. Feel this, look at how this crumbles. This is what a Russula does. There's nothing, I mean, you can't learn that in a book. Like getting that hands-on experience and being out in the woods. Check out, there's lots of local fungi fairs. Find your nearest one. Go talk to mushroom nerds. We love to spread the mushroom gospel. Like we will talk your ear off. We're excited to share our passion with you. And so don't be afraid to ask. We love it. Get involved wherever you're at.
That's so funny. That just reminded me, smelling the mushrooms. There's one near me, what we found. Little guy, about yay tall and very skinny, about like smaller than a pencil. And then, little top, smelled like garlic, like burnt garlic. Have you ever come across anything like this?
Yeah, there's some mycena that smell garlicky. That's what immediately comes to mind. And they're real narrow and tall. Yeah, if you look at, there's Dr. Rob Hollick has made an odor wheel where he went through like literature and made a wheel of all the mushroom odors that have been like officially put into the description. And I mean, we're talking hyacinth, maple syrup, burnt sugar, old ham, bleach. I mean, like there's so many, old gym socks. Like these are in the official description of these mushrooms. And it is very subjective, and not everybody's sense of smell is the same. I love passing around a mushroom and being like, tell me what this smells like, and just seeing what all the answers are, because I'll know what it is and how it's like officially described, and then seeing how people perceive it. But odor is also the one sense that we have the least reference bank for. We have the least words to describe odor. Like we tend to say something smells good or something smells bad. Whereas we have all these other descriptors for all of our other senses. And unless you know what marzipan smells like, when you see that in a description, if I find that mushroom, I'm not going to be able to put that name to it. If I've never smelled marzipan, I'm not going to be able to smell that mushroom and communicate to you to what it smells like. So it's a difficult, attribute to really use. Yeah. But once you start training and like learning the odors and the reference smells, really, I keep joking. I want to have like at one of the festivals have like, I don't know, film canisters or something, and have like all these common, like the cyana, like there's mushrooms that contain the like maraschino cherries. They smell like maraschino cherries, and like things like that in the little cups, and you can go around and like sniff them, and then I'll like have a little list of some of the mushrooms that share that odor. But I've never. I have lots of big ideas.
You have to get a neutralizer though, right? To in between smells,
something to like, cleanse your palate.
Right.
A little neti pot.
I don't know what it would be. Right, new car smell. Okay. Yeah. Well, will you come back and do this again?
Sure, absolutely.
I want to learn more. Anytime you get something really exciting, let's do it. Mycena, yeah, this is exactly what it looked like. That's
the only thing that immediately comes to mind as something that smells like garlic.
Yep.
I'm sure that's not the only one. I'm sure there's other things that smell like garlic, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my journey. Cool. I'm excited. For what's going to happen next. Well, let's sign off, and I'll talk to you right afterwards. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, goodbye, everybody. Go out into the woods, touch some grass, and be good to each other. Try not to be a jerk. The world's full of them. Alisha Millican, wonderful human being. Where can people find you if they wanted to track you down and tell you things? On the internet somewhere.
Yeah, you can email me, mycologymaven.com or at gmail.com. Yeah, I'm not widely accessible to the general public unless you're in Tennessee and want to come to the East Tennessee Mushroom Club.
Swamp her with stupid questions, everybody. Just flood her inbox with ridiculous questions about mushrooms. No, thank you so much for coming, and we wish you all the best in all your research, and we hope you find thousands of species and, write them down.
Thanks. I'm working on it. I'm publishing as fast as I can.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you in the funny papers.